I tried to, talk to him about that and all. But he didn't open up that much about it from everything I recall.
And you looked at his flight hours up until that point.
Yeah.
And so what was he had a commercial license.
Well, yeah, he had to have a commercial to even be taking the course. And like I said, I think you also had to have the 1,500 hours to take the type rating course in anyway. So,
and do you know where he got those from?
No, I don't. That never came up in the investigation. I mean, and as far as I know, I'm sure they did it. I know there were a lot of the hijackers that had gotten some training in Florida. Mm-hmm. I think there were some that had gotten some in Phoenix too, up in Deer Valley. So, and the other question that, I don't know is, how legitimate was that time? Did he have, they used to always call it Parker time, and guys would talk about where people would put time in their logbooks that they never actually flew. So I don't know if all the time that was in his logbook was legitimate or if it was penciled in.
It is possible that some of it was fraudulent.
It could be possible that, like I said, because he just didn't have that level. It's like this guy doesn't seem like he's flown that much, and I mean that's what rang our bells, is like he just didn't seem like he was at the stage he should have been for coming in and taking a course like that.
Well, did he ask any questions?
Well, there were stories that guys said, "Oh, we don't care about landing. All we care about is, taking off or flying or whatever." He never asked anything like that directly that I recall. But he was just interested in trying to learn, I don't remember, like I said, even going in the sim, I don't remember if he asked questions about the transponder. We talk about the transponder, and that's one of the things that tells ATC where the airplane is and what its altitude is and all that. And so, I'm teaching it as a system, saying, here's how you turn it on and off, and there's a circuit breaker and, and all that. So he's most likely picking up on that information. And that's one of his interests, is how do I disable this? Because once they took over the airplanes, they shut that kind of information off. So the FAA couldn't track, or couldn't find where they were.
Oh, wow. And you're saying that he did ask about that, or
I don't remember specifically. I just know that's in the course of training. That's one of the things I would have been teaching about, is how you operate the different systems, radar and the transponder and electrics and hydraulics. So,
wow. And so he goes through that first week. He doesn't pass. He goes through a second week and may or may not have.
Yeah, I don't remember that, because one of my friends, the instructors there, taught that.
Got it. And then you don't remember if he actually got into a sim while you were there. You never saw him.
I don't think so, but I don't remember. He may have gotten in, and it may have been because they wanted to try to keep him scheduled, so they may have put him in with the other student that was doing the training, at least initially, to get. Now, the other thing about that is, because here, that was a special thing about Jet Tech, is we could do, I think you were required 5 sims and then a check ride or whatever, and we could do the first 2 or 3 in that flight training device, and then you had to go to a level C or D sim, which is one that has the full motion and all that. So we could have done a couple of them there, maybe to just see, okay, let's see if he's going to be in, and so he may have done a couple in ours to see, hey, is he ever, even if he passes the ground school, is he going to be able to do the training? So he may have gotten in the sim for a flight or 2. I don't know.
Interesting. And was there anything else about him in your 2 weeks that you interacted with him that was peculiar, that stood out, that you find memorable specifically?
Like I said, I didn't think that. One of the other instructors did, but it may have been, Monday morning quarterbacking too, because we never talked about it until after 9/11.
Got it. So you reached out to the FAA on day 3 or 4 of the ground course.
2 or 3 even, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Because the FAA attended one or 2 of the days of ground school.
And that's pretty common if you have someone that's sort of underqualified.
That's the first time I'd ever heard of it.
Oh, really?
Because every other person that had come through was, I mean, you could tell, like I said, the guys that came through as crop dusters, is like, you're going, well, if these guys only have crop dusting experience, are they going to be able to fly a big jet? But there's a lot of guys that do. I mean, most of the guys we had, though, came through with time in little jets or little, turboprop airplanes at regional carriers or something. So they had more than just a, single engine experience. Like I said, the crop dusters, I don't know if they've ever flown anything other than, crop dusting airplanes, and maybe a couple of, you had to have some twin engine time to get your commercial, but, or to get the ATP. So I don't know. I don't remember specifically, but I mean, you're sitting there going, oh, and they ended up graduating and they got their type ratings. So they were good enough. There were some guys that through the course of the week, you go, yeah, they may need extra instruction, say, okay, we'll put off your oral until, for 2 days, and we'll give you an extra day of specialized instruction to get them up to speed if we didn't think they were ready. Or if they failed their oral exam with the evaluator, then they'd have to get extra training. And so you'd go through and give them remedial training, and then they'd have to repass their oral. They'd actually have to pass an oral before they did it. So that was a designated examiner. We had some within the company. Sometimes the FAA would do them, or we could have a company nominated examiner that provided the evaluation.
Got it. And so how many other people were in the course with him? Do you remember?
I don't remember if that was a class of 2 or a class of 4. Typically, that's all we did is 2 or 4.
So it was really small.
Yeah, it's always small.
And did any of the other students say anything about him or notice anything like, "Ooh, this guy"?
No, really. Again, that was all just us after, behind the scenes, talk, like I said, on our breaks and stuff, or at lunch, we, I don't know if this guy's going to make it and that kind of stuff. And expressing our doubts too.
Yeah. And so that official notice to the FAA was the things that majorly tipped you off is like low flight hours, underqualified, and paying in cash.
Paying in cash, yeah. And like I said, that's the first time I'd ever heard of them calling the FAA and saying, "Hey, we're suspicious about this guy. Come check it out." Everything else, like I said, everybody else had been just normal. So that's what kind of stuck out, which is why after 9/11, it's like, oh God, hope not, but it turned out it was.
And then which month was this? Do you remember exactly?
No, I don't remember how soon before 9/11 it was.
It was probably 2001?
So I started teaching Sims the end of 99 or the end of 98. So all of 99, all of 2000. So it was probably 6 months or a year prior, but I don't remember exactly.
Got it. Yeah. Interesting.
Again, I don't have the date. I can pull it up maybe or look it up in the 9/11 Commission and report and find out about that. But
wow. So the FAA sends an officer to kind of probe him, chat with him, looked at his documents, and they had an FAA officer on site that said, no, this all looks fine.
Yeah. He said, yeah, it's okay to me. Yeah, he's a little weak or whatever, but he didn't see anything suspicious or didn't have any reason to take it any farther up his chain or take it to the FBI or anything at that point.
And did you talk with the FAA officer?
Yeah, he sat in the back of the class. Like I said, he went to lunch with us that one day, so.
And you didn't tell him like, hey, this is, right? He didn't ask you. Like,
well, we talked. I told him the same things we had said. Is it seems a little strange. He doesn't, he doesn't seem to speak English as well as he should to be English proficient. To have English proficiency on his license, wow. and he just didn't seem to have the knowledge of somebody that should be, at that level in the class.
Wow. So then those 2 weeks go by, he doesn't graduate, and he kind of, he just goes away. Yeah. You never see him again.
We didn't see or hear anything about him since.
And then 6 months to a year go by.
Yeah.
And then September 11, 2001.
Yeah.
And do you remember where you were?
I was at home in bed. I was asleep. But I was supposed to have be landing in JFK that morning at 7:30.
Wow. And what happened? Why didn't you?
Well, we had a computer program where we could change trips or whatever. And I'd gotten my schedule, and I had picked a trip over 9/11 that I wanted to try to trade with another one. And I tried to put the trade in, and it didn't go through. And it's like, well, it should have. The computer messed up or something. So I called scheduling and said, hey, I should have gotten this trip trade, and I didn't get it. And they said, oh yeah, you're right. I said, well, can I have the trip? And they said, no, we've already given it to somebody else. But because I should have gotten the trip, they said, you're pay protected. You should have gotten that trip. We didn't. So just stay home. They paid protected me, and somebody else then got called for the other trip. So I don't remember if it was the original trip or the one I was trying to trade into, but one of them would have had me landing at JFK at 7:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So by the time we got to the hotel, it would have been, I'd have probably been in the shower about the time it happened.
Wow.
Because we used to stay on those long layovers. We stayed in downtown Manhattan.
And just to be clear, the flight that you were supposed to be on was not one of the ones that was hijacked.
No. There were no America West airplanes.
Got it. Yeah.